Welcome to the Let's Feel Good podcast. I'm your host, Annie. After nearly a decade of asking, why don't I feel good? I ultimately discovered the answers through simple changes to my daily habits. I've spent years healing myself and investing in health and wellness companies tackling the chronic disease epidemic. Along the way, I realized something important. True health isn't built through cold plunges, IV drips, or $30 smoothies. It's the small, everyday choices that add up, shaping both how we feel today and our long-term health. Let's Feel Good is here to keep it simple, giving you practical tips and swaps that compound into a lifetime of vibrant health. Thanks for being here. Let's feel good together. Welcome back to the Let's Feel Good podcast. I am so excited to be here today with Sachi, the founder of Rootless. We dive into her personal health journey with PCOS and hormonal acne and how food as medicine approach changed her health and led her to start Rootless. We dive into the incredibly powerful benefits of seaweed and share tips and practical tips to start healing your body from the inside out. Thank you for being here today. I cannot wait to dive into this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
So excited for you to be here. Awesome. Well, I'd love to start with your personal health journey. I know that your journey with PCOS and hormonal acne really inspired you to start Rootless, and healing yourself was kind of the big driver of your own story. So I'd love if we could start there and you could share a little bit more about your story.
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in India. My family and parents are still back there. It's funny when, your mom and your grandma teach you things and you don't pay attention to them, and then it comes full circle. So I'm definitely having one of those full circle moments in my life. Very much grew up in that Ayurvedic food as medicine philosophy. We were never a supplement household. We really were about food as fuel, nourishing good, veggie forward, protein forward food. Um, and so that was sort of the kind of context within which I grew up. I have been diagnosed and misdiagnosed and re-diagnosed with PCOS, I would say probably for my entire teenage and adult life. And I think it's a story that resonates with and is similar to what a lot of women experience, particularly around like the lifestyle PCOS diagnoses. So when I hit puberty around 13, I just had terrible acne, just like cystic acne, was like hormonal. Also, having acne as a young child is really self-esteem killing. Was always really self-conscious about my skin, and we were just in and out of doctors' offices, dermatologist offices. We didn't even know, like, really, this was when I was growing up in India. We didn't really even know who to see. So one dermatologist diagnosed me with PCOS, and she said that there was kind of an imbalance in my LH and FSH hormones when I was pretty young. Um, and therefore, I have been since then trying to solve PCOS, but really through, medical interventions. So name it, and I've tried it. I've done the isotretinoin, which totally like dries everything up. I don't know if any of your listeners of you have experience with that. I tried a version of Accutane, which just kind of messes with your body. Maybe it's like helping dry up your cystic acne, but it's also drying up other parts of your body. And I just didn't feel like my body was actually my own for a very long time. When I was 16, I was just put on the bill. The doctors were like, just go on the bill. It's gonna help. It'll reduce the symptoms. It'll clear up your acne. And so from 16 to about 30, so almost 15 years, I was on the bill kind of continuously. And I would say it was, I got kind of flare-ups around my period. My cycle was always pretty regular. I didn't have, particularly debilitating PMS symptoms, but the skin, the kind of acne was always an issue. It's funny how, all of these things kind of happen at the same time. So when I kind of serendipitously, in 2020 is when I turned 30, and I decided that I wanted to start Rootless. And it actually kind of was born out of my career in climate change and oceans. I've been doing climate change and oceans work for over a decade, and I discovered seaweed, which I'm so excited to dive into with you. And I was like, okay, this is the hill I'm going to die on. This is what I believe truly could be future food, future farming. And my theory of change with the company was, can we build consumer demand for seaweed? Like, can we make it sexy? Can we mainstream it in the wellness cabinet? Can I create enough of a mainstream consumer demand for sustainable regenerative seaweed to create value in that regenerative supply chain that I really believe could change the world. So in 2020, so the setting is 2020, I quit my job. Pandemic. I'm, still dealing with some acne issues, and I go home. And I see an Ayurvedic doctor, and she was like, honey, you need to get off of the pill. Like it's really wrecking your system. And from a food as medicine, holistic healing perspective, it's really not doing you any good right now. So I got off of the pill, and Annie, it was like I had to, my acne was so bad. And if you remember the time we were all wearing masks, so I was just like
Probably
I
made
was
it worse.
so it made it so much worse. And I was just embarrassed. Like I was really embarrassed to like have, adult acne, cystic acne. I had to take 2 rounds of antibiotics to really calm down the inflammation and really start to get to like that healing from the root modality that I believe in and I grew up in. And also I started to eat my own product, when I was building the product, when I was doing the experimentation, when I was figuring out what the dosage was. So in the 5 years that I have been on essentially the daily bite protocol, so the Rootless, daily dose of seaweed, my body just zipped up. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but there was one um maybe like a 7 to 8 month period where I lost close to like 15 or 17 pounds. Skin cleared up, my energy levels were back, like something just happened. And the more that I got into the nutrition and the science behind seaweed and the daily dose and thyroid and metabolism, the more I realized that it just re-regulated, it rebalanced my system. And the really interesting thing that's happened since is, in addition to, like better skin health and hair health, is my menstrual cycle is the most regular it has ever been, including when I was on the pill. So I have, and I have Aura Ring data now, so it's all, I have receipts, but it's 25 days plus or minus 1 day, kind of navigable PMS symptoms. It's actually shortened the length of my bleeding period. So yeah, seaweed really helped me heal, and kind of what started to emerge from the testimonials and the work and the consumer trials and all the work that we've been doing with our subscribers and our consumers is, we started to hear very similar stories from our consumer base. So the company has kind of shifted, and my story has shifted a little bit from, I started a seaweed company to I started a seaweed powered hormonal wellness company.
It's amazing. So did you end up healing your PCOS and acne after you went off the
I did. What was interesting also is that, so one of the key indicators of PCOS is cysts on your ovaries, right? Like that is one of the things that shows up. I never had any cysts on my ovaries, so I was just in and out of diagnoses. Um, was it PCOS? Was it not PCOS? Like, why are my hormone levels imbalanced? If it's PCOS, why don't I have cysts? So it was just in and out of diagnoses. Which also as a kid or really as a woman, struggling
Yeah.
with any kind of um, dis-ease or symptoms of something of hormonal imbalance, it's a really invalidating experience because you're like, what the hell is going on in my body? Why can't anyone tell me?
Did you have irregular cycles? Is that what the leading indicator was that something was
It
off?
was acne.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I had PCOS too. I did have cysts on one ovary, but again, it was like the wishy-washy diagnosis because PCOS is a very lucrative term. Like what it really is insulin resistance of your ovaries, but I was never told that. But I did have some skin stuff, but I had very irregular cycles, went off the birth control pills, didn't get a period back. I did get the ultrasound and I had cysts around one ovary. But they were like, yeah, you're only opted for birth control. And if you want to have kids down the road, maybe IVF. They're like, you might never have a cycle. And I was just like, how is that the answer? And then I dove into the data and the research and realized that it's a metabolic condition. It's really insulin resistance of your ovaries. And I got my blood work done. My fasting glucose was like 105, 110, which is very much in the pre diabetic range from stress. Like my PCOS, my hormone imbalances were totally driven by very long-term acute stress, and to the point where I was, like, metabolically unhealthy, and when I got to the root of that through, like, the mental work behind it, stress regulation, regulating my nervous system, balancing my blood sugar, totally put my PCOS into remission, and I have, similar to you, 28-day cycles, no pain, hardly any PMS
It's
anymore,
amazing.
it's easy, and it's, like, the craziest thing too is because we're just not told this stuff. Like, I had psoriasis and dermatitis and acne, and it was just like, "Here's a steroid cream, here's doxycycline, here's spirulactone," and no correlation to gut or hormones or stress or diet or endocrine disruptors, and it's so unfortunate because the answers are really there if we look deep enough and are willing to reconstruct our lifestyle to align ourselves with, healing from the inside out, so important.
And also, I think the other piece of this that's worth highlighting, and I'm so inspired by you in the way that you navigated this, is you're kind of on your own.
You are
You're
on your own.
sick, you're inflamed, and you don't have help. You don't have people you could trust and go to and work with. And if you do, you're lucky. So the fact that you have to do this on your own is a very unique challenge, I think, as it relates to women's health. And I agree with you. I think, we were chatting a little bit about inflammation. The impact that stress and inflammation has on our body is wild. I read this wild stat that said that 80% of autoimmune diseases impact women. And it is not surprising to me at all because we are taking on so much of, emotional, physical, there's just so much stuff that women take on that it's making us sick. It's making us sick and inflamed.
And people, it's I've been in the health and wellness space for my whole career and personally for my whole life. And for me, health and wellness was always defined by eating whole foods, eating organic, exercise, walking, sleeping, which is amazing. And those are the pillars of our health. But what I believe is like probably the big pillar is nervous system regulation,
Totally.
feeling safe, it's feeling calm, it's being in healthy relationships. And that foundational aspect of our health has been totally ignored. And I think, like, we live in a society where harder is better, and women definitely do feel, I mean, I have this conversation with my friends and, other females in the health and wellness space all the time, but, like, we also live 4 seasons every month. Like, we should not be working the same hours, moving at the same capacity, being as social for all 4 weeks out of the month, but we live in a society that just expects us to. So I really believe that I don't know, I believe that the emotional aspect to our health is one of the biggest drivers of long-term health, but also the biggest drivers of chronic disease and sickness. It's so important. Well, I'm so inspired by your story, and it's incredible that you're feeling better, and I also think that your story and how you transformed your own health is just such a testament to Rootless and what you're building and the fact that it really, really, really works. I would love to dive into Rootless, and I'd love to start please tell us what Rootless is, the benefits of the product, and also the meaning behind the name, because I think that that story really encapsulates the power of your
Thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about that. A lot of people, including some fans, some Rootless fans, don't get the name. They're like, this product makes me feel so grounded and balanced and rooted. Like, why is it called Rootless? I've actually had a couple of people write to me that
product.
feedback. Okay, maybe we could start with the name. So, uh, the 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 star behind Rootless is seaweed. I'm obsessed. Seaweed is one of the most nutrient dense and diverse foods on the planet, and we can, double click into the nutrition profile a little bit later. But it has vitamins, minerals, trace elements, bioactives. It has a lot of actually unique bioactives and polyphenols that land plants don't have. And what's interesting actually is that seaweed is rootless. It's an algae. It's actually technically not a plant. And it's the fact that it actually doesn't have a root system means that it absorbs sea minerals and it absorbs nutrition from its entire surface area, which is why it's the super concentrator of nutrition versus a land plant that is really limited by its root system. So its rootlessness actually enables it to be this like superpower powerhouse of nutrition. And kind of, incidentally, I have personally felt rootless for all my adult life. I grew up in India. My family's back there. I moved to California for undergrad. I've been bopping around. There was a period of time, up until maybe yesterday, there was a period of time where I could literally pack up my life in two suitcases and move, and I had to do that. So I always kind of saw my rootlessness as like a liability. I was like, oh, I'm so tired of not having a couch, not having like some place that feels like grounded and home and home for me. Outside of course, my home in India. But I think I'm really growing into the fact that like the rootlessness is also my superpower. I'm adaptable. I can fit and change and morph. And I'm personally finding a lot of like meaning and identity actually in the name of rootless as well. So that's why well, the from a branding perspective, it's like a little bit intriguing, so there's like a fun little like, oh, what is that, kind of like incongruous element to it. So the vision with Rootless was, how do we get people to eat it every day? Like I want every person in the world to be eating a little bit of seaweed every day. And the reason that this is important is because in addition to all of that beautiful, vitamin, mineral, trace element bioactive, and in addition to that nutrient density and diversity, seaweed is the most bioavailable, natural, and potent source of iodine. And iodine is an essential mineral that your thyroid needs to make D3 and D4 hormones. Which every single cell in your body uses to convert food into energy. So I like to the thyroid is the workhorse and kind of underappreciated and underloved. And I'm like, let's make thyroid sexy. Let's get more people to pay attention to their thyroids. I describe it as the battery of your body. So if that battery is not charged, with iodine, with selenium, everything is working less efficiently and less effectively in your body. And typically, thyroid issues impact women five out of 8 times more than they impact men, which is,
Why is that?
uh, I think so. This is my hypothesis. This is not the
Yeah.
scientific answer, but as you know, our body is just a system of hormones, right? I think there's like 400 hormones in our estrogen receptors in our body. So the thyroid's kind of the symphony conductor, and it just means that it has to work a little bit harder for us vis-a-vis men who have less receptors and less kind of hormones buzzing through their body. That's my unscientific hypothesis.
Yeah.
But women typically get a thyroid diagnosis when they're in some major hormonal journey in their life. So a lot of women get diagnosed with hypothyroidism is the most common one. Hypothyroidism when they're in their pregnancy, IVF, postpartum journey, and then perimenopause and postmenopause. So what has been a really interesting, journey with Rootless is in getting women and people their daily dose of seaweed, 100% of their daily dose of bioavailable whole food is nice and based iodine. We've actually found that women in perimenopause or postmenopause, like 35 plus, effectively really feel the impacts on their body as it relates to energy levels, like just chronic fatigue, that feeling of like sleeping for 8 hours and waking up tired. Lots of gut health impact, particularly as it relates to regularity, and then skin and hair impact, and there's some dryness impact as well.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting too because your thyroid, I had Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition of your thyroid, and your thyroid is so susceptible to stress. So if
So
you're
yeah,
under eating or overworking out or, you know, not taking care of your body and taking a lot of endocrine disruptors or chemicals or eating inflammatory foods, I feel like it really, really affects your thyroid and quickly. Um, yeah. So that's super important. So at a really high level, because I think, a lot of people probably don't understand just how important the thyroid is. Could you walk through maybe like 3 to 4 of the, biggest systems and impacts that your thyroid has on our body and why it is so important to maintain a health
So actually the thyroid impacts every system because
everything?
it's literally the battery of your body. So every organ, every system, the T3, T4 hormones are actually being used by every single cell in your body to convert food into energy. So it's like the conductor, you know. It's doing everything. And I mean, I marvel at the human body. I just feel like it's nature has designed us actually quite beautifully, and there's a lot of redundancies in our system as well. So if one organ system is maybe not doing its job as well, you can compensate. Another organ system will compensate for it. So I my 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 hope and plea and mission is to get people to really think about their thyroid as like foundational, like that's where all of it is starting. So if you're able to keep your thyroid healthy, um, everything, then everything, it kind of depends, of course, on like what is, if you're navigating any kind of like chronic illness or hormonal issue, but just knowing that you have a healthy thyroid, I think is like a good first step. And to your point, the four things that we all, particularly as women, need to pay attention to is cortisol, like our adrenal health, our thyroid health, our sex hormone health, and then the gut health.
And they're all
And that's like the
totally
pillars.
they're all totally interrelated too.
Totally.
Like, totally interrelated, which is
Totally.
so important to recognize. We're gonna get into seaweed and the benefits, the nutrients, how important iodine is, but what other ways can we support our thyroid in our day-to-day life?
Um, so selenium is actually, so iodine is key. And selenium is super important. I think if you eat two Brazil nuts a day, I think you're getting your entire daily dose of selenium. So making sure that you're fed. So iodine and selenium. There are a lot of autoimmune issues as it relates to thyroid, as you know, Hashimoto's, Graves. Hypothyroid is when your thyroid is functioning less optimally. Or thyroid is when it's racing. The levels of hypothyroidism are a little bit higher or not a little bit, are higher in the West as it relates to versus hyperthyroidism. But my kind of philosophy is like, we need to start with nutrition. We kind of have to cover our nutritional bases. And then I think, depending on what your philosophy of medicine is, working with an integrative doctor, working with a functional medicine expert, doing tests, making sure that you're kind of navigating your health journey with help, with people whom you philosophically align with, I think is important as well.
So what are some symptoms to look out for if someone might be struggling with a thyroid condition? I think it's a little bit confusing. Like, I know that brain fog, weight gain, and constipation and dry skin and hair loss, those are associated with hypothyroid. Um, what else should we be looking out for that might make us think, hey, maybe we should go and get a workup and see how our thyroid is really functioning?
Biggest one. It's funny because I actually just read something about this, and I'm gonna write. I have a Substack now, and I'm gonna write about it because I'm like, this is wild. The biggest one is fatigue. Um, it's funny. We side note. There's this incredible functional medicine doctor that we worked with to help us, not formulate, but really like do a deep dive into the science and the nutrition. And there's actually some interesting work around seaweed helping with estrogen flushing. So yes, it's supporting the thyroid, but it's also doing something with your sex hormones, which is interesting, particularly if you're in perimenopause. Um, but we were working with her, and I was like, Nadia, who is Rootless good for? And she said, the tired woman. And I was like, this is $1 billion idea. Because every single woman I know is exhausted. Exhausted, and it's like this feeling of like you're tired in your bones, you know. So I think like chronic fatigue, just being tired, having to like, and I will admit I go in and out of these phases. You have to like battle through. You have to push through with your second cup of coffee, your third cup of coffee. I think fatigue is the biggest indicator of some kind of thyroid imbalance. A very if there is actually acute hypothyroidism, because there's subclinical hypothyroidism, which, kind of informs, it's like the warning sign, it informs a lot of these systems in your body and symptoms in your body. But acutely, your extremities get cold. So if your hands and feet actually get cold, it's pretty likely that there's some thyroid issue going on. Skin, hair, dryness is a big thyroid symptom. The other big one, and what's actually interesting is that these symptoms very closely mirror the perimenopause symptoms. Because your metabolism is slowing down effectively, there's a lot of like midsection weight gain, and it's stubborn, so it's actually hard for you to lose. What else? I think
What
those are the big ones.
what is the correlation between shifts in your thyroid function and hormonal changes?
So the T3, T4, thyroid, T3 and T4 hormones are hormones, right? Like, so, it's, again, I think it's like it's part of one, it's part of the system. And two, it's like the foundational kind of conductor that's going in and making sure that everyone is healthy. What we have found is it's like, the gut brain axis, there's a thyroid gut axis as well. If that baby is charged, like if that's foundationally solid, when you're going through perimenopause, which is or postpartum, which is another wild period in a woman's life where your sex hormone levels are all over the place. uh, Having an anchor, like a foundational anchor to stabilize you while your sex hormones are doing the thing that they're going to do, actually lessens alleviate the symptoms of perimenopause, and also sometimes thyroid dysfunction.
Really interesting. Really interesting. Wow. Okay, so talk to us. Iodine is sounds like the superstar in seaweed. It really supports our thyroid, but can we overdo it? Is iodine supplementing or eating, iodine, is that good for everybody? Is it good only if you are lacking iodine in your diet or, producing not enough internally? How do we know what is enough and what is too much and if we should avoid it? Because I feel like iodine is a little bit of a controversial nutrient.
Okay. There's a lot of myth busting around iodine, which is which is fun. Um, I guess first things first, our body doesn't produce it. So we need to supplementally either take it through supplements or food. My preference is always food because your body just knows what to do with the food based mineral molecule versus a synthetic molecule, and there's been a lot of research to suggest that. So that's the first thing. Interestingly, iodine, and again, it's a spectrum. So there's iodine deficiency, which is like this is a big problem, and then there's iodine insufficiency, which means that it might be leading to subclinical symptoms. Iodine deficiency. I'm going to throw a stat at you that blew my mind. Iodine deficiency is the leading cause of preventable brain damage in children. I'll say that
Wow.
again. Iodine deficiency is the leading cause of preventable brain damage in children, stated very publicly by the WHO. So iodine actually is needed for cognitive development, particularly when a woman is pregnant. She needs to eat 1.5x the amount of iodine that you would if you were not pregnant. When you're postpartum, you actually need 2x the amount of iodine. So according to the FDA, you need 150 micrograms of iodine, kind of, normal adult. If you're pregnant, you need 225 micrograms. If you're postpartum, you need 290 micrograms. 40% of prenatals on the market, and prenatals are also helping women in their IVF journeys and their, fertility journeys and their egg freezing journeys. 40% of prenatals on the market don't have iodine in them. And what's super interesting is that when you're breastfeeding, and when your fetus is cognitively developing, you're effectively eating for two, you know? Um, iodine deficiency actually has been linked with lower IQ. It has been linked with cognitive and developmental challenges in children. All of this to say, this is why in the early 1900s, there was this worldwide, highly suggested mandate for countries to iodize salt because there were just these big, waves of iodine deficiency that was impacting, again, mostly women and children. Which is why in the 1920s, we started to eat iodized salt. So in the West, actually, iodine deficiency was pretty quickly not cured, but the deficiency levels were reduced. And some of these like really negative population level data started to look a little bit more promising. What has been super interesting culturally, and I'm curious what you use and also what your listeners use, we're all moving away from using table salt. Like culturally, there's like a chef-led, people-led, uh, gastronomy-led move away from using iodized salt because like sea salt, Himalayan salt just taste better. And also they have other minerals in them. So iodine deficiency levels are actually back on the rise, which is why some of these issues, some of these like chronic fatigue, um, some of these issues that women are navigating, worse perimenopause symptoms, subclinical thyroid dysfunction, it's all tied.
Interesting. So, are a lot of our this rise in thyroid issues, is there a strong link or correlation to lack of iodine in our food supply?
Um, there hasn't been any population level data to actually like connect the two, so I don't want to say yes unequivocally, but my hypothesis is yes. In 2024, October of 2024, there was a huge report actually that was released by the Lancet that said that blew the iodine deficiency numbers actually out of the water. They said that 5 billion people are iodine deficient, and I think the previous estimate was 2 billion. And another myth around iodine deficiency is like the West is fine. It's like developing countries that are iodine deficient, which is also true. People who are actually studying these deficiency rates found out that some of these cultural changes have actually been shown to have impacted iodine deficiency levels in the West. According to that paper, over 75% of North American women are iodine deficient. So it's a lot of us. And I think a really easy test is look at the salt you use. If you're not using iodized salt,
Well,
there's
everyone uses sea salt, and I feel like
uh,
sea salt is like the wellness salt these days, so that's really good to know. So other than seaweed and salt, if we're using the right kind, where else do we get iodine in our diet?
so seaweed is the most bioavailable natural potent. Oysters, salmon, like sea. Iodine is abundant in the ocean. So oysters, salmon, seaweed, uh, enriched grains sometimes have or enriched wheat. Sorry, not enriched grains. Excuse me. Sometimes have iodine. Another. God, this is such a rabbit hole. Sometimes the udders of cows are sterilized with iodine, so milk can actually, like whole milk, dairy milk, can have iodine in it.
Interesting.
Super. And you're like, there's all these like things in my brain that I haven't thought about it so long. It's like opening up a closet. I was like, oh my God, I haven't thought about that. Statistically, fruits and veggies are not a good source of iodine. So even if there's something there because it's like you know, because the soil is coastal and there's, a little bit of like minerality in the soil that the plants are through their root system, um, you know, sucking up, it's very incidental. So unless you're being very intentional about your iodine consumption, very likely that you're not getting it.
Do you recommend women get tested? Like, is this important to know our levels?
It's a tough one. Yeah, I think it is. It's a tough one because the iodine test is a p-test and it changes. So the best way to do an accurate iodine test is once an hour every hour for 24 hours. So
Is it
that's it.
blood?
It's a p-test. It's a
Okay.
urine
Oh,
test.
oh, I see.
Um,
Interesting.
so that's a tough one. But what I would recommend, and like having access to these tests is like a whole different conversation. But the one thing I would recommend is really pushing for your primary care doctor, physician, functional, like whoever you're going to contact is in the medical system, to not just test for TSH, but test for 5 different thyroid tests. Because that's another issue with the way that the Western medical system is diagnosing thyroid issues. They're doing one test, and that one test is just not. It's not a complete. It's like not a complete set of information. So the 5 tests that you need to really bully your doctor to give you are DSH, T3, T4, and then the antibody like free T3, free T4.
It's really interesting that you say that because, my story is I just didn't feel good for so many years, all of high school, fatigued, anxious, weight gain, cold, headaches, fatigue, like classic thyroid issues. And I went to an endocrinologist and she tested my TSH and it was 4.5, which is at the very high end of clinical ranges. Like that is you we're going to a naturopath or an integrative practitioner, like that is very much out of range. I clearly I had an issue with my thyroid. And because it was technically within range from a clinical perspective, she did no further testing. And I had an autoimmune disease. I had Hashimoto's, and it went undetected for 10 years. I lived with the symptoms, and it went totally undetected because my endocrinologist didn't say, "Hey, your TSH is definitely at the very high end of the range." And mind you, too, those ranges have not been reset or retested in a very long time. They are
Exactly.
averages. If you go to a functional practitioner, they look at much, much smaller ranges as within range and healthy. So she didn't test my T3, my free T4, or antibodies, and my autoimmune was misdiagnosed. And then 10 years later, I went to a functional practitioner, and the first thing they did was test my antibodies, and they were really high. And Hashimoto's it's the most common autoimmune disease, and it's especially prevalent in women and it damages your thyroid. It's an autoimmune attack on your thyroid. So, hypothyroidism, the biggest driver of hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's because Hashimoto's
Yeah.
is damaging your thyroid. And if you have enough degradation, your thyroid stops functioning. And that's when you move into thyroidism territory. And if I had waited any longer, I would have had hypothyroid. So it's so important, especially as women, if you feel that something is intuitively off or wrong, to get testing, ask for the comprehensive test, go a level deeper. If something's like at the high end of a normal range, like take that to go a step further. Because it is so important that we address these things. And, I then went back to my doctor with that, and she's like, "Oh, you can take Synthroid for your," and I'm like, "No, I don't wanna take a medication and cover up the issue. I wanna heal my thyroid." And our body is very receptible. It is very adaptable. It wants to repair. I was able to totally like, I don't have Hashimoto's. I put my
That's
autoimmune
amazing.
disease into remission through lifestyle. Not only is it really important to get the data, but it's also really important to feel empowered that obviously there's a time and place for medication, but that is not the end of the road. Like our body is so resilient and so adaptable to healing if we're giving it the right tools.
So I could not agree more, and I feel so strongly. Both, honestly, it both fuels me and it breaks my heart. That we just like I think women have such a powerful intuition. Like that is what like that is the thing. That is I think that is the thing that it's a hard thing, but I believe this. I think that is what defines the feminine, like we're deeply intuitive, and that intuition is coming from our bodies. And the thing that I have been really struggling with both personally and, working with women in this capacity and being a woman, all of it, insert like role here is we're just all so disembodied. We're so disembodied. We don't feel what our body, or we don't listen to what our bodies are telling us. And I think what we're trying to do with Rootless, and what I'm trying to do with my life, what I'm trying to do with people around me is like create tools and systems and rituals and really redefine even what like quote unquote self-care is, which to me is not this like commoditized, like take a bath once a week. It's these, what are these daily practices that you're doing, which are small and boring and mundane, but what are these daily practices that you're doing that are helping you come back into your body? Because the truth is, everything you need is already in here, It's just a question of like, how do you tune in and how do you listen on the frequency at which like it's telling you that it needs to be heard? And that work, oh gosh, I feel like I'm so inspired by you and your journey. Like that work is some deep unlearning, like reconditioning work that I think particularly we're gonna have to do because we've just
100%.
been, conditioned to ignore it. And then we're chronically inflamed, we're sick, we have autoimmune issues, like in the irony of all of this is like I'm, wellness founder building this thing. And I mean, I have women who will even personally email me, but also email our inbox sharing these super intimate stories of how these, not just the bites, but the ritualization of it, this feeling of like I wake up every day, I do something good for myself, I take a moment of pause. Like there's both a psychosomatic and like a physiological thing, impact that these bites are having. Maybe you're paying attention to your food a little bit more. Like there's a ritualization of it, which I think a pill or a powder or gummy like, will just never be able to do. But I have all of these stories and testimonials of how this product and this brand is really changing people's life. And I am slowly going down a rabbit hole of like I am, and I actually found an alopecia spot, which is like a pretty, yeah, it's not an autoimmune issue January of last year. And I was like, the irony, of like getting women to slow down and pay attention to what their body is telling them when like I have like it's like it's I don't know how to pronounce it, alopecia areata, I believe, but it's those like bald spots, the point sized bald spots. When my body is telling me like, woman, you need to slow down. You know? Like the irony is not lost on me.
Body is constantly speaking to us. I had a really interesting conversation with a friend of mine the other day who is also a female founder in the health and wellness space and like super into, the somatic, the embodiment work. We actually have been doing a journal speak practice together for months. And I don't know if you know Nicole Sachs, but it's that all chronic disease and anxiety, most of it is rooted in emotion. So like when we suppress our emotions, it surfaces as pain. And I'm such a believer that like we have to heal our feelings, we have to embody them, and then we have to detox them. It's so important. So she is a wellness founder, but like very into the psychosomatic, more of the somatic element of wellness, which I believe is foundational, as we've been talking about today. And we had this conversation about how women are so much more sensitive during their luteal phase. And I struggle on and off, depending on what's going on in my life. Like, I went through a big breakup over the summer. That obviously is a higher level of stress, which made my PMS weeks worse. Or if work is super busy, if I'm not sleeping enough or drinking too much caffeine, then my PMS is worse. And I used to have so much anger because, like, I think I spent so long perfecting my health and balancing my hormones, getting my cycle back, and like optimizing my well being that when my PMS was higher, or if it was a little bit more emotional, or if my cycle was a little bit funky, I would be like, I'm failing. I'm not, what do I need to be doing better? What did I do wrong last cycle that led to this? And she said something really interesting to me because during PMS, you often are very emotional or you're more anxious or you're more irritable. And she said that our luteal phase is women's like softest spot in our cycle. It is when we are most in tune with ourselves.
Oh, I
And
love that.
I had a really interesting that it is actually when your intuition is the loudest. is during your luteal phase. Like if you find yourself crying a lot or questioning if something is really right for you, or you're not like, we've been conditioned to be like, oh, we're crazy, or we're so dramatic, or we're being way too emotional. Like we need to be productive. We need to not rest. Like we need to get these intrusive thoughts out of our head, but reframe that and be like, what if our luteal phase is when our body literally cuts the speed in half, slows us down, and talks to us the loudest? And we are not crazy. We are not too emotional. We are actually hearing our internal wisdom the loudest and the clearest out of any part in our cycle. And it totally reframed the luteal phase for me. So now during the luteal phase, I don't blame myself for needing more rest. I don't blame myself for crying. Like maybe that is when we detox things that we've been like keeping in check all cycle because we need to perform and not miss a beat and like keep the pace of society. So what if it's our cleansing, our intuition, our deeper knowledge surfacing? And like, I don't know, I had this like newfound appreciation for my luteal cycle, and it's an opportunity to journal. Like hear those things and like, yeah, maybe this relationship isn't right for me, or yeah, like maybe I want to go in this direction with my business, or yeah, maybe I'm like overcommitting socially. I don't know. I think it's just women are so powerful and we are such intuitive beings, and society has made us feel like we are too much, too emotional, too big, and we're not. We're actually like super smart, super intuitive, super purpose driven, nurturing. And yeah, we have this amazing connection with ourselves and we have to lean into it.
I love that.
It was
That's
cool.
amazing. I love
It
that.
was a
I could
really
not
cool.
agree more. I could
Yeah,
not agree more.
really cool.
Also, I
Amazing. Go
feel
ahead.
like there's this. Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, like, I've been thinking a lot too about like when you're saying optimization, because we're also in that space. I mean, I'm in San Francisco. Like, I hear optimization, biohacking, longevity. Like I hear it all the time. And when I actually hear people say like optimize their hormone health or biohack their hormones, like a part of my body has like a reaction to it. I'm kind of wondering, like, thinking out loud. I think it's less about optimization. I think it's more about alignment. It's less about optimization, more about flow. And I think once we start to actually, to your point, like flow with what our body is telling us, as opposed to like beat it into submission and up, because optimization is efficiency. I don't want to be efficient with my hormones. I want them to actually like be wisdom, to your point. So I'm going to have to think about that.
Well, the other really interesting thing too is optimization is almost static. It's
Mhm.
rigidity, it's
That's true.
routine, it's performative. And
That's true.
our bodies are
It's
not
not
meant
flow.
to be optimized. Our bodies
Totally.
are constantly changing. Healing is a lifetime journey. We are, taking in new information. We're moving through different experiences. We're feeling different things. Like we're meant to, it's really funny. Like a quick anecdote on this is when I was the most uncomfortable in my body, like my hormones were absolutely chaotic. My skin was horrible. I weighed 30 pounds more. I was super inflamed, brain fog, depression, anxiety, fatigue, insomnia, you name it. I was the healthiest I have ever been in my life. I didn't touch sugar. I ate 100% organic. I didn't eat grains. I ate all the fruits, veggies, the whatever grams of protein for my body weight. I was the most unhealthy that I have ever been because I was so out of alignment with my body. I thought I was in my head programming myself into health rather than feeling myself into health. And now that I live intuitively, and it's like I wake up, am I hungry? Am I not hungry? Why would I eat if I'm not hungry? Why would I not eat if I am hungry? If my body's craving a big warm bowl of rice and sweet potatoes, of course that's what I'm going to eat. Why would I have a whole food off limits? You know what I mean? And with that, like no rules, no rigidity, no repetition, just like completely in tune with what my body needs to support it that moment, that day, my health totally leveled out. Like our health isn't a performance. And when it is, when we try and optimize, we just totally self abandon our intuition and we're never going to heal if we're trying to control something external. So true. It's so true. Awesome. Well, we've gotten through a lot of why seaweed is so beneficial, so important. I'd love to ask, there are different types of seaweeds have different benefits. Like what type of seaweed do you use in Rootless? And are there different bites for, you know, different, I don't know what you would call it, like imbalances or ways we're trying to support our body? Is it one size fits all? How should people approach taking the bites?
Um, thank you for the question. Also, in my excitement, I forgot to actually say what the product is. So I'll say
Well,
that. I'm so excited about everything we're talking about. So the daily bite is our hero product. It's dates, almonds, seeds, seaweed, and a little bit of quinoa, and you eat one a day as you would a supplement. So whole food is medicine, 100% your daily dose of iodine, and all of these other good things, but in a whole food format, and you're eating it once a day. We have 5 flavors, and really functionally it's all the same. The flavors were just to give you like a journey, to go on. Some people like to get the variety pack, where you can have like variety, a little bit of variety in your week. Some people just stick to a flavor. So it's a choose your own adventure consumer journey. We actually use 5 different species of seaweed in our bites, and we developed this proprietary blend. Exactly to your point, each species, I would say not even species, but each kind of family of seaweed, we have red, green, and brown seaweeds, all have different bioactives in them. Depending also on where they're grown, they can have kind of varying levels of, they're absorbing what's in the water, basically. So they'll have kind of varying levels of like vitamins, minerals, etc. Um, Brown seaweeds, which is, and some of the examples of brown seaweeds are kelp. Kelp is a type of seaweed. Kelp is not the umbrella though, which I think is another thing that people get a little bit confused about. Kelp, bladderwrack, these are species that have something called fucoidan and fucoxanthin in them, which are actually being studied for their anti-carcinogenic, anti-tumor, antiviral properties. Any disease claims, because we're not a pharmaceutical drug, and we don't want to do that. But there is a lot of information out there about how these molecules and bioactives are actually helping not just improve outcomes, but kill tumor cells, which is wild. And if you actually look at, population level data, people who live the longest in blue zones, Okinawa, Japan, parts of Korea, seaweed is a part of their regular diet. So seaweed is like a longevity protocol. And I think what's interesting is that you should be getting both diversity and density, so you should be eating like the way that the Japanese eat and the Okinawans eat seaweed, for example. They'll have a little bit of kombu, a little bit of nori, a little bit of, they'll have kind of different species in their traditional preparation. So what we wanted to do was give you the access to all of these different bioactives across the red, green, brown families without having to, prepare it or in like a traditional way or think about dosage. So each bite has our proprietary blend. And what I'm trying to do is also get enough fluency around the different types. This is going to be a lot. This is my, life walk. So this is going to be a long time doing this walk. But in the way that we think about reishi and cordyceps and lion's mane. Now we think about mushrooms and like the various things that the bioactives can actually and the nutrients can do for human health. I want to start to build those stories around seaweed as well. So one of the species, for example, we have in our blend is sea moss. So sea moss is a type of red seaweed. And there's some super interesting molecules of that help with gut health. We use a green seaweed species, it's alba, and there's been some research to show that there's some bioactives in that actually have that improve longevity biomarkers. It's all early research, so I think there's significantly more work that needs to be done to really like. Uh, with scientific credibility, like build out these health profiles and archetypes for each of these seaweeds. Um, it's exciting work, and there's over 12,000 species of seaweed, so there's really like a width that you can and a variety that you can choose from.
it's unbelievable. What I love about your product too, because I'm a user of them and I have felt amazing benefits from taking them on a daily basis, which is so cool to see. Seaweed is like, I guess in Japanese culture, if you live in other parts of the world, it's a much more of a staple in your diet. US, it's not. I would not know where to get it. I would not know the kind to get. I wouldn't know how to cook it. I wouldn't know what to eat it with. So I love that Rootless is a whole food-based approach. It's not a capsule, it's not a gummy full of sugar and artificial flavorings. It is like 100% all real whole foods. It's made with other incredible ingredients that support your health, and it's delicious. It's like, my habit is in the morning, I take 2 with my coffee, which is, like, perfect, but I don't know if I'm supposed to be taking 2, am I?
You can take this. So the up to your question about like, can you eat too much iodine? If you do have a thyroid that is like suboptimal, either hypo or Hashis, the upper tolerable limit is, according to the FDA, 111. Oh, sorry, not 111. 1,100 micrograms of iodine. So if you ate like an entire bag, so if you ate 7 or 8 bites in one sitting regularly, and you have a thyroid issue, I would not recommend that. If you actually don't have a thyroid issue and your thyroid's just humming, you will just pee out the excess iodine. So one of the reasons that we actually wanted to dose it such that at 100% at that 150 micrograms was that we wanted everyone to be able to access it, regardless of whether you're navigating some, thyroid issues. But my one disclaimer is that if you're functional medicine doctor or somebody in the Western medical system that you trust has given you some, reason to be intentional about your iodine intake, just check with your doctor before taking it. But I think the other piece of this is just food, right? So like if you're taking it and you don't feel good, stop taking it.
Yeah, totally, totally. Amazing. I love this. Everybody needs to go buy them and try them. They taste definitely work, which is so cool. I'd love to wrap it up with what is one thing that you do every day other than taking your Rootless bites to feel your best? One routine or ritual that you just swear by.
Such a good question. I think it goes back to like nervous system regulation. I think I also believe that that's it. I think that's where health comes from, truly. So I like to have slow mornings. I wake up pretty early, and I like to do my coffee, my bite, and I like to go on a walk. There's actually times where if I don't take the time to do that because I'm like on my email immediately, there's some fire that I have to put out. There's a fire every day. I actually start to feel it like physiologically in my body. So I need to do that for myself every day.
Phone off in the morning too. It's hard to do because I wanna wake up and, like, I check my Oura ring and I wanna see if you know, whatever. But I've noticed, like, the mornings that I'm really patient, I get up and I have my lemon water and I'm into
Okay.
TBM. I don't know if you know about the
Oh,
To Be
what's
Mag
that?
Oh, you would love it. To Be Magnetic by Lacey Phillips. It's a program.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I do that and meditate, a journal, whatever, and if I can go that, like, hour and a half without turning my phone on, my nervous system is so much calmer all day, but it's hard. But, yeah, mornings are everything, and getting up early is the best.
Totally. And sunlight. I think I subscribe to that Huberman, philosophy of like just look into the sun. Like I don't
Yep,
actually wear my sunglasses. I go out, I look at the sun, I'm
yep.
in it, and so I really subscribe to that as well.
Even, like, 15 minutes in the morning without sunscreen on is really good for you to get that vitamin D and sunlight. And then obviously sunscreen. The important thing too is, like, sunscreen when you're working on your computer, sunscreen when you're inside, so, so, so important, but that morning sunlight, getting it in your eyes, getting it directly on your skin is so important. Amazing. Where can everybody find you? Where can they buy bites? What do we need to know?
So we are primarily direct to consumer. So if you want to give the bites a try, we're doing a holiday promotion now where you can get to try all the different flavors and at like a discounted price. So the website is getrootless.com. We're on Instagram. We just launched on Amazon. So very excited about that, like this week. And yeah, if you have any questions, we have a really amazing woman-led and woman-run team, and our COO is a traditional Chinese medicine doctor and acupuncturist. So she really helps, women who have questions about how to take it, what the dosage is, really helps them kind of define and guide their daily bite protocols. So I would say just try it. It's food. It tastes good. It'll help you slow down, if nothing else, well, for a moment every day. And pay attention to your energy levels, your not just gut health, but like your regularity. You're pooping more regularly, which we love, and then any kind of skin, hair, back things if that's something as well.
Mhm. Amazing. Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an amazing conversation. I personally learned so much. I'm so excited to share it with everyone, and we'll have you back again soon.
Thank you, Annie. What a pleasure. What a pleasure. There's so much stuff I need to like quickly go and journal about now. Thank you.
Talking to female founders, Let's Feel Good podcast for all women that I chat with. And it's, half are female founders, functional practitioners, energy healers. And yeah, it's just like the coolest group of people because everyone gets it, health and wellness in women. It's so important.
Thank you.
Love it. Awesome. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Let's Feel Good. If today's episode helped you feel more clear, empowered, or inspired to take action on your health, I'd love if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend who's on their wellness journey too. You can find today's show notes, links, and extra resources over on Substack at letsfeelgood.substack.com, and follow along on Instagram at Let's Feel Good Club for more real-life wellness tips in between episodes. Because how you live determines how you feel, and we all deserve to feel amazing. See you next time.